Welcome to How to Create a Setup Table and Page for Your App. Hey, I'm Eric, and a very typical thing is that whenever you have created something, an app, there's probably some sort of setup you need to have for this app, and this might be just an app that is extending some functionality somewhere in BC, but you might have some sort of setup fields that you need to host somewhere. And a pretty bad way of doing this, but a quite often used back in time, is that then you extend the sales and receivables setup or the general ledger setup on one of the existing setup tables. You add your field there, you add it on the page, and you're done. The problem with this, the reason it's bad, is that there's no way for you to control security for setup on your app versus setup on the base, whatever base setup table you connect to. And your app might be one field to begin with, and then suddenly it's 2 fields and 4 fields and 8 fields, whatever it is. So you might as well do this right and isolate your setup into its own setup page, setup table. And that there's also a couple of added benefits, but I will get to those. But let's write some code. So I started a blank app here. So the first thing we need is a setup table, and I'll use the AZAL extension to quickly create myself a table, and my app setup and data per company, sure. And so the first trick is that in reality this is a one record table. So how do we ensure that there's never more than one record in a table? Well, we ensure that by not giving anybody an opportunity to ever put anything into the primary key. Nonetheless, we still need some sort of primary key, because we cannot have a primary key-less table in Business Central. So we can create a field called primary key, perhaps spelled correctly, and the pattern from Microsoft is that's code 10, and that's just how it is. Then we can add some important setup 1, that's probably a date, and then we have important account, which is a code. We'll create tables, and then important item, because that's how we fly. So we have 3 fields in our setup. I'll hit finish right here behind myself. I click, and I have the table. That is pretty good. And this is just a table, and we got that as primary key. So let's create a page for this also. This time I will just do it manually, setup page, because this is where we need to do our work. So we'll create a page, my app setup. And of course this should have a caption, because translations and so on. The page type has to be card. And so the first, remember what I said about the primary key, that if we avoid people ever having access to the primary key field, we cannot have folks putting anything else into that field, and thereby we can never have more than one record. Let's go see if we can, I'm able to type content. Maybe we want a group here, and caption on that one, general setup. And I will add some fields. So this, actually I'll go up here and use this one. This typically works better. None of them works. You know what? Then I will do it the old-fashioned way. Important important. No, you know why it didn't work? Because I never told what source table I had. So source table is of course my app setup. Let's see if the action works now. Maybe it shouldn't actually suggest that when there's no. Anyway, we had the very important setup 1, we have the very important account and the very important item. Boom. So notice here that at this point I have not added the primary key to the page. I'm not going to add the primary key to the page because if we don't put it on UI, nobody can enter anything in it, and by definition we can never have a value in it, so we can only have one record. Let's do, while we remember what page number it is, 50,600. So we have a page, we have a table. Let's rename this to my setup table here, and let's run this thing. Let's see what we get. And we are deployed, and we are logging in. Okay, so we have our 3 fields set up. So now any regular users, I need to fill this out. So they will hit this one, and now it said saved, but they're not able to edit this. So they could of course go in here and say click plus, and then we have the very important date, and I don't think we have put a table relation on this, so we can do something like this. And then we get back to that one. We could go plus again, and now I think we got a nondescript break here. So we got a breakpoint, but I don't think, we cannot see anything. It just, there's an error. This is kind of weird. So we can start it again, and then we get stuff like this. We can delete this, and now it closed. So let's see if we can improve the user experience, because this is not intuitive that you have to press plus. So what I usually do in cases like this is that I create a trigger here on, we can do on init. Let's do it on init. And we can say that if reg.does is empty, so there is no setup, then reg.not modify, but insert. So if there is no record, make sure there is a record. So let's try to deploy this. So now we are in the same page again. So if I hit the pencil now, it works. But this up here is still kind of not intuitive. So I can go in and then we can put a date and whatever, but I can still hit plus. And now I am getting the break point again, which is not a break point, just a break, and then I get all this annoying thing. So this is still not very intuitive. So let's just delete the setup we have and then go back and see and say, so now that we are already inserting, let's make sure that insert is not allowed. And I usually actually say that, delete is not allowed, because why would you delete the entire setup? There might be a good reason to keep this, your mileage may vary here, but to me, now these are grayed out, right? So the only thing when you get into the setup, that you can hit this thing, and I actually think let's put a usage category equal administration and application area equal all. And the reason I did this is because there is a slight difference between how pages are opened depending on. Now we are, it did the whatever it is page equal up here. So you get one way of doing this from there. But if you go this way, my app setup, it opens in edit, right? So this would be the normal way they come. So to come in, users can hit fill out what they need, and you cannot delete your setup, you cannot insert a new one, and this is pretty good. So this is pretty good. I think we can make one extra improvement to this, and this is actually going back to one of my point from the beginning, is that the reason you want to put this into your own setup. So let's go in here and look at assisted setup. So here we can see that there's a bunch of stuff that is lined up, and I don't. Let's see if there's any apps who has actually put anything in. I'm not sure there is. No apps has done anything on this this container, but we can do that. So we can create a new file. My app setup management, and that is a code unit. So if we create an event subscriber to a code unit, and the code unit we want to subscribe to is the one called I'm not good at these. It's the one called guided experience. In that one, guided experience, we have an event called on register assisted setup, and we don't care about elements here, and skip on stuff that can cause problems. True. My app setup register. So you can see that this event doesn't have any parameters. So the only thing we can do is that we can call something in here. And what we can actually call is we can call a guided experience. Wow. Experience? I think that's right. Code unit, guided experience. And in this code unit, we have there's a function called something with insert assisted setup. There we go. And this one, I believe, takes a bunch of parameters. So we can do a title, and then we can do a short type or title, the best app. Here we go. Now we need a description, an even better app. And by the way, be sure your short title is a short title, so it's 50 characters only, so that's kind of weird, but just be aware of that, especially if you have. So I burned myself on this particular field because I had a label here, as one should if you are working with translations, and I had a beautiful description of one of my apps in less than 50 characters. But One of my translations for this beautiful description turned out to be more than 50 characters. And that compiles fine. No issue. That goes through app source validation and everything. And then at some point when somebody using that language was trying to install my app, it broke this piece, which was a big annoying thing. So actually what I ended up doing, just to be sure, is that I put a copy string surrounding the label, because then I was sure. Anyway, so let's continue. Where are we? We have that was the description. So expected duration. How many minutes the setup is expected to take? 2 minutes. Object type to run. So we can call object type page here. Let's actually, sometimes when you have a function call with that many parameters, it's nicer to just see them one parameter per line. But that sometimes, unfortunately, oh, no, this is stupid. Anyway, are we ready? So now we have object ID to run, which is page : my app setup. Okay. So that was stupid, the multi-line thing. You know what? I'm just gonna do this. See if we can trigger this again. Only by moving that around. So we got object type, object ID to run, that is page my app setup. Then we have assisted setup group, the assisted setup group. That's an enum, so assisted setup group. Enum assisted setup group. So what do we want to? We want to put this in, I don't know. Analysis. Yeah, there we go. And then I think the next is a URL to a video, so we can do HTTPS. This actually doesn't work, which is kind of weird. So if I do something like this, so that is a URL to a lot of videos. If you know how many, you're probably subscribed. If you're not, how about become a subscriber? And then we have a enum video category is analysis, and then the last parameter here is a help URL. So I will just go, here we go, hogarth.com, www. So that was a lot of parameters. Anyway, let's try this again. That was like a one line, and that took longer than the video I had about a one line. Anyway, so if we go to assisted setup, now we have our thing here. So if I click on this, we go into the setup. This one has a added benefit, and going back to what I said 20 minutes ago, that if an app, now with version 21, if an app has a single assisted setup registered, then after you have installed the app, so if I go, you see, if I go here, extension management, and then I go and look at all the apps that I have. Okay, This is where we're getting this ordinal value con app supported countries, always breakpoint. Anyway, what we call this something with setup, right? Here. So if I go now here and I set setup, I get to my setup. And after you install the app, you also get to the setup page automatically. So that's pretty nice. And that's kind of the icing on the cake, and to do a proper setup page. So I think this is production ready. We probably need to create table relations on these two fields, but that is how you can create a good setup experience for your app. And I hope you enjoyed that. If you need more AL hacking, you know where to look. This video right here, full of stuff, hopefully. I'll see you there. Take care. Bye.